Well, Chris, what about yourself? What caught your eye in the last week on tour?
Well, I mean, it also caught Sabalenka's eye, and this is a particularly interesting moment that happened on court. We tend to try and keep these off court, but I couldn't help but kind of bring this one up at this stage because there was a big dispute between the umpire and Sabalenka on an out call when she was break point down in her match against Elise Mertens. So, I mean, this wasn't necessarily the final, but it still was pretty dramatic. It did make some headlines because
Mm.
the umpire, Miriam Blade, did actually say that the call was out, and she went and checked the mark. And then what happened was that Sabalenka actually asked her team for a phone, and during the change of ends, she went and took a picture of the mark, and then she posted it to her social media. But what was interesting is because she's not allowed to actually go and do that. There's also rules about not crossing the net. That can also be a problem at changeovers, all these sorts of things. So she got a warning for it. She did take the call and she kept playing. She did win that match. But she did say that when she shook hands with the umpire, she gave her this sort of very firm handshake and sort of a look. So
Mm.
she'd never experienced that before. And she was asked, "Did you squeeze her hand back?" And she said, "No, it's okay. Why would I play this game with someone like her? It's okay." So pretty spicy comments. And also, I do think from the picture, if anyone sees it, we will post it on our social media. But it looked very much into me. I mean, I'm not an expert. I thought this was a thing of the past. I thought we were
Yes.
fully going to automated systems, but dodgy line calls on clay looks like they're still here to stay.
Sabalenka's giving the rest of the locker room inspiration, I feel, on like what to do. Get out your phone, take a
Yeah,
picture, post
her
it on
own
social media.
VAR. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
I mean, we were talking about people in, Charleston not wanting the new technology that they
Mm.
trialed, the Hawkeye for the
Mm.
clay. But
It's not going to be at the French
ultimately,
Open.
it's not going to be at the French Open. But regardless, you're going to have arguments potentially either way. People either disagreeing with Hawkeye or just disagreeing with the
Just
conventional
disagreeing.
line
Just
judges.
disagreeing.
So it's there's going to be arguments either way, isn't there? But yeah, it's quite an iconic photo. I think it's with her taking the photo of the mark with her team's smartphone. So yes, I'm sure we'll see a few more of those over the next few weeks as the clay season progresses. But let's delve into what happened in Stuttgart because Sabalenka today also not the happiest of Easter bunnies because she did lose in straight sets in the final to Jelena Ostapenko 6-4, 6-1. Ostapenko winning her first title on clay since she won the French Open 8 years ago now. She has having a very interesting season, Ostapenko. She's nailing it against the top 10 players. She's 4-0 when top 10 wins this year, slightly less of a high percentage against everyone outside the top 10. But she has had a storming week in Stuttgart, coming away with the title today, including another win over Iga Swiatek en route. Chris, how impressive has Ostapenko's week been out in Stuttgart?
She does this, doesn't she? She has a habit of going from absolutely no form and no signs of form to being the best tennis player in the world for a week. And then normally things
Mm.
do return pretty quickly because if you look at her season so far, it's been quite hit or miss. She's had some quite early losses to players that you wouldn't necessarily expect. We could probably forgive that Miami loss to, I think that was against Alexandra Ayala in that match. I think so. She can have a few passes, but it definitely hasn't been the form that we thought. I mean, she lost in the first round as well in Indian Wells. And so this was a bit of a surprise coming in. But if she puts herself in these situations playing against top players, it's almost like it ignites the fire inside her to be like, you know what? I'm going to prove to everyone on my day I can beat anybody. And especially when she plays against Iga Swiatek, because something inside her just rises her game to another level. It's almost like she's been put on this earth purely to beat Iga Swiatek and have one of the most one-sided head-to-head records. Because a lot of people would have thought on clay, Swiatek would have been the favourite for this one, and it didn't go that way. So she really is now the ultimate bogey woman on the tour when it comes to the head-to-head. And I have to say, I mean, Joel, is Swiatek ever going to beat Ostapenko, do you think?
I mean, we are getting into like Serena Williams versus Maria Sharapova levels of imbalance in a head-to-head record, and we
At
talk
least
about.
Sharapova got a win though.
She
Well,
did. She got that Wimbledon
true.
final, right?
That's
So
true.
that's something.
We talk so much about the Swiatek bakery and all the bagels that she serves out, but she's eating one of her own in the Jelena Ostapenko rivalry, 6-0, and
Yes.
Do you know what? I just don't feel like it's going to come anytime soon because although she did, win a set, and that was, to be fair to her, more than what Sabalenka, the world #1, did in the final. It just feels like, that Swiatek is in. Sorry, Ostapenko is in Swiatek's head at the moment and is wreaking havoc. And I never really felt like Swiatek was gonna win this. And it feels to me like that Swiatek's game is just perfectly made for Ostapenko to just bash the ball from the back of the court. All the spin that she plays with, the way it sits up, particularly also if she's not having a great service day, a lot of second serves kind of going in. They are there to be hit. And yes, Jelena Ostapenko can be very cold at times. And that's why I think why we see some very inconsistent, indifferent form. But when she is on, she's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, she's beaten Swiatek now on all surfaces, so grass, hardcourt, and now clay. So that's also, it's definitely not confidence inducing for Swiatek. It almost feels like when they're in the same section of a draw now, we're just automatically thinking, if Ostapenko gets there, Swiatek's not going any further. And that may be the case for Madrid.
Yeah, I was going to say, you say that like, it could be on again. A repeat could be on again in Madrid. And you would think maybe those conditions favour Ostapenko a little bit more at maybe the altitude.
Never the week after she's performed. It doesn't work like that. It's like the Kvitova approach.
Keep it up though?
You peak 1 week. Yes, 1 week a year. You're unplayable.
It's almost interesting that it happened in Stuttgart because Stuttgart, the draw for a 500 is like, we always talk about it as one of the most stacked 500 fields. There's no kind of gimme matches. All the, typically a lot of the matches are against high quality opposition from the get go. And maybe that helped Jelena Ostapenko because she does seem to, rise to the challenge when she's playing opponents in the top 10, for example. And she did not have any gimme matches really, over the course of the week. Navarro, as you say, Swiatek, Alexandrova, who was playing very, very well, defeated Andreeva and then Jessica Pegula. So, great week, great tournament for Ostapenko. And I want to ask you both, do you feel like she's a contender for the French Open?
Oh, that's a big question. She has won it before.
She's got to be. Yeah, she's won it before. We know she can do it. But is it?
But even if she's gonna have those those lower ranked
matches
players
in a row, it's tricky. It's very tricky to know. But a motivated Ostapenko can do an awful lot of damage. I do remember though that after she beat Iga at the US Open, she then got absolutely dismantled by Coco Gauff, and no one would have seen that one coming at all. So I do think you can't necessarily kind of read too much into it. I think probably the bigger result, as opposed to beating Swiatek, was beating Sabalenka. Normally, that hasn't been a great matchup for Ostapenko previously, I think, in the head-to-head. But also, Sabalenka is someone who you do think really doesn't necessarily give you that easy ball. And I think that's where Swiatek sometimes, as you said, with the second serve, it can sit up to be hit. Sabalenka doesn't normally do that. So this was quite surprising that this was so one-sided. I did think probably this would be a final result for Ostapenko. But it seems like Sabalenka is the most consistent player. But it does feel like some other people do go that little peak higher than her occasionally at some of these finals, which I think you can probably forgive. But at the same time, I think she probably would have really wanted this title.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite a disappointing result, especially the nature of the scoreline. I think that was what surprised me the most, rather than it being, 3-set tussle I could have foreseen, but 6-4, 6-1, quite dominant for Ostapenko. That's what surprised me the most. I mean, interestingly, Ostapenko, in terms of active players, as a stat going round, she's the only active player to have reached finals on all surfaces. So that's outdoor and indoor hard, outdoor and indoor clay, and grass and carpet. And the only other players who've done that are retired, the likes of Sharapova, Enin, and Safina. So she's obviously very adept and versatile. It's just
dangerous wherever she plays, right?
Yeah, it's just the consistency aspect
and a doubles game as well. I think that adds to that versatile nature that she has. That means that she is a threat. On all court surfaces.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And another player who's done very well this last week is, someone who, again, is very versatile, I would say, across all surfaces, has gone, deep at times across all surfaces, and that's Elina Svitolina, who picked up the title in Rouen, out in France. Straight sets in the final. She was the top seed, beating Olga Danilovic of Serbia. Bit closer than the Stuttgart final, though. 6-4, 7-6. The scoreline in this final. Her first title for almost 2 years, so much needed, I think, for Svitolina to sort of pick up and progress. But yeah, a close one, bit edgy at times, especially in that second set tiebreak, but getting the win done and having a pretty seamless week out in Rouen. Chris, I know you're a big fan of Elina Svitolina. Are you pleased she's picking up this title kind of as we progress through the clay season?
I think so. I think it was smart scheduling to drop down to get some matches under her belt. She's been playing very well. I mean, she made her first 1,000 quarterfinal at Masters level in quite some time. And so I think, well, actually, probably it was her first on a hard court, actually. So she definitely has form. I think clay is her best chance of winning a slam. Playing grass, probably it would be. But clay is the surface where she's most comfortable. So I would love to see her. I mean, she is 30 now. I would love to see her, really have a deep run. She does tend to get knocked out in those quarterfinal stages, or maybe the round of 16 when she gets a really tough draw against a really great player. I mean, she seems to always end up playing Sabalenka in some of those moments, and she does quite often lose that result, or Rybakina, or someone who really can potentially hit her off the court. So I think this is a good result. When you look at the draw, you would say she should win this title.
Class apart.
Yeah, she is a class above, and I mean, she didn't lose a set all week, so very, very good for the confidence. And there was also one other player of note that I saw who did come back, which was Bianca Andreescu. Though she did not win, she did push it to a third set title against a player who did make it to the quarterfinals. So
third set
actually
title.
the semi-finals.
Third set of the match. Third set title.
Oh, third set tiebreak. Sorry. Well, I'll give her a title, her third comeback title, maybe. But either way, it was good to see her back, and she's very enjoyable to watch on clay. And I loved watching her at the French last year. So hoping she could pick up some form. But this seems to be the sort of tournament where, I mean, Sloane won it last year. So I'm just thinking, who's my next favourite to win it? So I'm thinking, maybe I would pick Andreescu for next year.
Next year? No,
Yeah.
well, perhaps, yeah. It seems like a good sort of almost comeback tournament for people who
give everyone a
would
chance.
be otherwise at 500 in Stuttgart. But yeah, no, nice. Well done, Elina. And some lovely pictures I saw of, Monfils congratulating his wife as well afterwards. But I think arguably the most sort of famous talking point to come out of Rouen is actually involving British player Harriet Dart, which this was reported widely in the British press during the week. She had a match against Lois Boisson, and she wasn't doing particularly well. She ended up losing at 6-love, 6-3, but during a changeover in the second set, Harriet Dart was heard asking an official for her opponent to put some deodorant on because she smells really bad. This was picked up. It's done the rounds. Everyone's sort of saying that's not an appropriate thing for Harriet Dart to be saying. In fact, I mean, I've never heard anyone say it on a tennis court before. She has since apologized. But what did you make of this? Did you think this was just kind of like catty comments because she was annoyed she was losing, or do you think the smell was really bad? What would you do if you were in that situation?
Boisson afterwards took it all in good jest, and she was actually using it as an opportunity to try and get some sponsorship.
She had a Dove sponsorship. Yeah, I saw that. I mean, she took it well, but it's not a good look. I think Harriet Dart would rather be known for her tennis than the sort of the comment about saying her opponent smells. If you are focusing on how your opponent smells, you're probably not focusing enough on the tennis, is what I would say.
Right. Yeah,
and it is a sport where you do sweat. It's something that does happen, and you don't actually have to play very close to your opponent. You just have to walk past them at change of ends. So I think there are probably bigger problems on court for Harriet Dart, and it probably was her side of the net that probably needed a bit more attention as opposed to her opponents.
Yeah, I can imagine some people next time sort of joking when they go off on court and just getting some like nice body spray and spritzing it around them. Or something.
A scent off.
Christmas present for Harriet Dart. Yeah.
Oh.
Links Africa.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Links Africa.
You're gonna lend her one.
Set. Yeah.
But yeah, apart from that, Rouen, a fairly quiet tournament, perhaps. News out that Maria Sakkari is back with her old coach Tom Hill. I think anyone who's watched Breakpoint, that's the coach that's featured quite heavily in the sort of Sakkari segments. Chris, I know before you didn't think that was the best partnership for Sakkari. So what are your thoughts on this kind of revival of their partnership?
I'm going to try and find a nice way to say this. I think it's probably clutching at straws. It does feel a little
Chris,
bit.
that's brutal.
Okay, I was going to say this airs on the side of desperation.
They had their best. I know what you mean, and I feel like, you know, when you're losing to Bujes Monero in the first round of Rouen, like you are like looking, you know, almost like in desperation. But
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Hill, she had her best successes, I guess, with Tom Hill, and I guess, you know,
It also ran its course. So that's one thing I do think sometimes you do have coaching partnerships that come back together and it works really well. It doesn't always work quite like that. And I think probably
it's like a sequel, isn't it?
It is. And watching
Part two.
Breakpoint, I'm not sure that I loved the nature of their interactions. I felt like they are almost best friends, and that doesn't necessarily translate to the best coaching relationship always. And then your friendship is tied into the results. It can become very sort of strained. And I do think it might help her feel more comfortable on the court again. So that's what I'm hoping for, that it will make her enjoy being on a tennis court, enjoy the training, and that can lead to good results. But I'm not sure that it's going to be fixed with a coach. I think it's probably fixed with a different sort of professional.
Well, let's see how it goes now that they are supposedly back together.